This is part 2 of an understanding and appreciation of the 3 weeks, which seem to be manufactured idea of mourning. And the challenge we have is how to use the mourning in a way that allows us to grow as Jews. The truth is that the 3 weeks, and Tisha B'Av especially, are hard for all people living today. And the reason for it is twofold. Number one, to be honest, our life is not that challenging. Thank God we have yeshivas, we have new buildings yeshivas, we have yeshivas in Eretz Yisrael, we have yeshivas in Russia, we have yeshivas all over the world, growing. Numbers of people learning are growing. The opportunities of living a kosher lifestyle are expanding every time. So what are we really missing? What are we mourning that we had and we don't have now? Number two is the day of Tisha B'Av is a very, very demoralizing day. And the reality is that we have all those kinos to say, and the reality is that sadly we're adding to the kinos. It's not that our situation has gotten any easier. It's not that as the Jewish people we don't have any more kinos. And therefore on Tisha B'Av the reality is that we are overwhelmed and somewhat depressed from our history. And it's easier to be happy with what we have, and to be able to feel good and continue building Torah, continuing building communities, and just continue as is. What is the purpose of Tisha B'Av and how are we supposed to come to it? I pointed out in the first part of this that the idea of mourning is not to create a memory of what we lost. The idea of mourning is to insist, to help, to ensure, to assist in creating an appropriate transmission. We have in the Torah the idea of the only idea that makes it that Hashem has any confidence in the Jewish people is, as we said, because Avram, we know that Avram will insist and that his children will follow in his path. Mourning is a natural process that is part of the human experience that brings the child in touch with the previous experience. But interestingly, it's not only that he remembers the previous experience, it's not only he remembers his father, but he feels a sense of responsibility to his father to maintain and to bring forward those values that he had. Now, the Torah shares with us that when the Jews sinned in the story of the spies, they took upon themselves vayisabolu. They responded once they realized that they had erred with the story of the spies. They felt a need of having mourning instantly. Right away they realized they had crossed a red line and they had a need to change who they were so that they can appropriately transmit the value that they undermined in the story of the Meraglim. What is that value? And how are we supposed to acquire that value? I believe the answer to that is with the coming of the Mashiach. When we once again have the opportunity to go back to Eretz Yisrael, the Jews, the spies, turned down the opportunity of being in Eretz Yisrael. They turned down the opportunity of Beis Hamikdash. When we will earn once again, and we will have Mashiach and the Beis Hamikdash, we will have then finally achieved what our forefathers could have achieved so easily in the desert had they just supported Moshe's view and not the 10 spies. It's a very chilling chazal that says that the first temple was destroyed because of the sin of adultery, idolatry, and murder. The second temple, the Talmud tells us, based upon the prophet, they didn't know what was wrong. The Talmud's language is that they were all tzaddikim. The people in the time of the destruction of the second temple were tzaddikim, righteous people. And that nobody could fathom what they were doing wrong. Why should the temple once again be destroyed? Until God himself, not even the prophets, not even the wise men, not even the Talmud could inform the Jewish people. God himself had to come down and tell the people that yes, externally you're all tzaddikim, but internally there's a sinas chinam. There's a level of jealousy, a level of pettiness that doesn't allow your tzidkus to be complete. And that allowed for the destruction of the temple. When the Jews erred in the story of the spies, one of the first things the Torah tells us how we knew that they were making a major mistake was because they came together, all mixed up. There was no respect. There wasn't the natural respect of the young people to the elders. They all came together screaming, we need to send spies. It's not safe. We have to know. We can't go to war in Israel. We need to know. So the first step that we must agree to is to correct that first mistake. That mistake of not showing proper respect for elders, not understanding that the Torah has a system of hierarchy, how we should be acting one to the other. The second thing is that the 10 spies made an independent decision for their fear. They decided they understood better than Moshe or the other leaders. This ability for people to second guess and to override other people because they're convinced they're right, I don't believe it's changed in the world we live in today. It's the same problems. The goal, as the Rambam says, that we Jews have to achieve a commitment to the values of the Torah, which are reflected in our constant waiting and looking for the opportunity that Mashiach is going to come. Because once Mashiach comes, then the entirety of the Jewish value system will be put into proper place. It's not only having more people in yeshiva. It's how we daven, it's how we treat one another, how we show concern for one another. Even in the time of the Beis Hamikdash, there were poor people. But how they were taken care of is different than how they're taken care of today. When we mourn now, we're not mourning because people died. We're mourning because we are no more living in Hashem's home. And therefore, when there was a Beis Hamikdash, you realize that we all would leave our homes, doors unlocked. You know, I don't know how many of you know the news, but only for the first time we have to lock our car doors. There was one of the members of the greater Olney community was rifling through cars and stealing. Now we've been told by the police we have to lock our doors. But in the time of the Beis Hamikdash, nobody locked their doors, nobody had gates. Where Hashem had promised us, since you're in my house and you're coming to see me, you can be secure. Today, we can't even be secure in yeshiva. Sadly, we had yeshivas attacked in Israel. Sadly, we had shuls attacked in America and Israel. Great rabbinic leaders died with terrorism. We don't have that security. We have to wait for Mashiach to come, because understanding and appreciating that what we live in the world today, based upon all Akinnos, is a world of tremendous tragedy, because we aren't connected and we aren't living in Hashem's house with Hashem. The goal of Tisha B'Av, the goal of these 3 weeks, is to convince us that the tragedies that have happened are not permanent. We can change that situation. And we will change that situation, because as Hashem promised us in Parashas Nitzavim, Hashem will come back and will return us to and gather us back and bring us back to Yerushalayim, bring us back to Eretz Yisrael, the land where Hashem exists. May we all merit Mashiach Tzidkenu coming as soon as possible, so that we can once again live in Hashem's house.